Welcome, this is Mariani once again from Shaman Essence, offering you another awareness through movement video. And I would like that you perhaps watch part of the video first before following the instruction, and just doing what feels comfortable. You don't have to do everything, and just, although for the sake of the video I might make the movements a little bigger, you may want to just keep them very micro and small and play with it. And practice just being very, very relaxed and letting go of any kind of doing, just being very sort of almost sleepy is one of the ways of putting it, so that our nervous system can sort of just learn and not be sort of wired into what we already know and do things the way we know them. So have an open mind and a curiosity about your body. And of course, when you execute the video lesson, you may just choose to press pause every now and then and just have a rest and not even necessarily continue the same day. Okay, so it's just a lesson in micro movements. And remember, we all use ourselves slightly differently, so don't try to model your body to move the ways mine does. If anything, you can be inspired, but just let it go. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is give ourselves a little body scan. So you come onto your backs, and you can choose to have a book under your head. But as we progress later in the lesson, I'm going to remove the book as we start moving the spine into more flexion, so that I don't put strain on the neck. So I'm hoping I'm in position that is comfortable. So just lying on your back, and if you're very comfortable without a book and the spine is not too curved, your head's not tilting back, then you won't need the book. But I find the book's very useful for allowing the head to sort of move a little forward and up, so the neck and the jaw can be very soft. So I want to check that I'm not clenching the jaw and the eyes are soft. So when you close your eyes, it's kind of a little bit easier to sort of slow down the nervous system and become more introspective. But sometimes working with the eyes open is very useful, because then you can practice a unified field of attention. But especially when instruction becomes a little bit more challenging, closing the eyes will help you sort of focus on the imagery that you have of your skeleton and yourself, as we are increasing to enrich this. So lying on the floor, I just basically scan which is the heaviest part of myself on the floor. Is it my head? Is it my pelvis? And the shape of my spine, where the curves press into the floor, where the vertebrae come off the floor, how my legs make contact with the floor. The weight of my heels, spacing of the ankles, the mass of the calves. You may notice that we are asymmetrical, that the right and the left side don't feel exactly the same, and that's okay. We release any judgment, we just observe, we notice, and we move on. It's really interesting that the back of the thighs have contact with the floor, slightly, lots, where they make contact or no contact at all. So this scan is creating a reference point, so we can come back to the scan when we rest briefly and just notice the changes. So resting is really important in these lessons of awareness through movement, because when you're resting, you're allowing yourself to process, and it's a bit like a computer. You're pressing save, you're saving information. And it doesn't matter if you understand this in a linear way. Your nervous system is very sophisticated and intelligent, and it will take what it needs, and the rest it will leave for another time to go a little deeper. Interesting is the weight of the head, where the back of the cranium makes contact with the floor, how much of my arms make contact with the floor. I can spend quite, 10 to 20 minutes just on the body scan. It's really wonderful. If the lower back is sore in the body scan, you feel pinching or pulling, then it's always, we have our vulnerable days, those of us with lower back injuries, so you can always bend the knees and have the feet standing, and that will tilt the pelvis and make the lower back have more contact with the floor. It will also change the way your head lies on the floor. It's always nice to become aware of the breath. So we're not forcing deep inhalations, we're just allowing the breath to be natural, be that held, be that slow and shallow, or be that deep. But you may notice as you bring your attention to your breath that the breath immediately changes. So whatever we bring our attention to can become sort of bigger, more observable, and even more profound. So today we're really working to begin with is the mobility of the pelvis, the mobilizing of the powerhouse, the dantian, the center. And often, even before working on neck, shoulders, or focusing on other areas of the mechanics of the body, we want to initiate this area for mobility, because without mobilizing, without any movability in this area, everything else kind of seems to freeze up. Just like when the neck is frozen, often the shoulders are frozen, and there's a lot of sort of frozenness in the nervous system from trauma. So we want to release this trauma. We don't want to muscle through anything. So here you may want to experiment on how wide or narrow you're going to have your feet. If your feet are too narrow, there's less stability, and there's maybe clenching in the inner thighs. If the feet are too wide, it's nice, you feel more stable, but there may be less mobility in the hips. So you want to find that place in between, not too close to the sits bones and not too far away. For some people, the hips don't allow the feet to come comfortably up, so over time you're going to see improvement there. So you see I've got my fingers touching my iliac crest edges here. These are the knobbly bits you're going to feel on the pelvis. And I want you to experience just a small flattening of the lower back, a tilting and a release. So I don't want you to squeeze your glutes to get this tilt. I don't want you to muscle it. Some people, that's the only way that they can do it in the beginning. So what may help as an auxiliary movement is to press into the feet. Imagine your toes getting longer. So pressing into the feet is just an auxiliary movement. You don't want to become dependent on that. But to just sew the pelvis, notice I'm not clenching, I'm not holding. As soon as I get to a range that starts to feel a little like there's resistance, I immediately release. So, and also another interesting thing is to feel how much this vibrates and pulses up the spine. Does it stop somewhere? Does the head slide on the back of your book on the floor, or do you feel a nodding of the head as you use this little pulse, which can be really slow, or it can be really fast pulse? Are you breathing, or do you hold your breath when you concentrate? So here I'm going to take these little iliac crest bumps here, and I'm going to slide the skin fascia over the bone to encourage my pelvis to tilt. I'm not doing anything like harsh. It's very gentle, very loving touch, very non-goal orientated. And the pelvis can also tilt the other way. So another way of instructing this is to maybe fill the belly with air, like you're getting pregnant or have a beer belly and you're pushing it forward. That's an auxiliary movement. It's a movement to help. This is a movement to help the pelvis move. So I'm flattening the back, releasing and arching. And you'll notice it can eventually move all the way through the spine to the head. And this happens not because I'm making my head move or my chest, it's because the whole body's movable. And you may not find this in the beginning. You may find that there's isolated, jerky movements. So you just want to make it smaller, less goal-orientated, more micro level, smaller, even like maybe not barely visible. So after playing with that a little bit, where you've got the small of the back coming off the floor a little, and then the small of the back flattening without clenching the glutes. So yes, the tailbone will lift a little bit. You can just release the legs and let that go. And maybe you'll check, if you look at some of my other lessons here on my channel, you'll see that a lovely thing is to release the head and just maybe roll it a little. I'm not rolling my head as much as I can, just rolling it in the range where there's no effort. And it will be different rolling to the right and left. Today, to my left seems very sort of almost downhill and neutral coming back. And to the right, it's like a little bump on the back of the cranium. It's going uphill. So we've got lots of lovely background music. And then after a little significant rest, you can bring the legs back up to stand. Check the neck and jaw is soft, and the inner thighs are soft. There's also an interesting part of learning is noticing how we react to distractions. Can we stay calm and just breathe and observe our aversion or our way towards pleasure or aversion, or just have a sense of humor and just let it go. So today's lesson now, I'm going to be releasing the book from under my head because we will be bringing the spine into flexion. So we've already done the pelvis tilt a little forward and back. Oh yes, and another way to tilt the pelvis is side to side, so one hip lifts a little and the other. Now for some people, this releasing in the psoas doesn't quite happen and the knees will go side to side just to get that tilt of the pelvis. And that's okay, you can even do this on purpose, but then you want more or less the knees to float forward. It's not that we're isolating, that we're just allowing the hips to be soft and one side of the pelvis comes up a little and goes down and the other. So it's almost like one knee moves towards you a little bit and one knee moves away from you a little bit. That's another way of looking at it. And check that the neck and the jaw is soft. Breathing is easy. So we've done the pelvis forward and back. If you're sitting on a dial of a clock, you're going down to 6 o'clock and to 12 o'clock. If you think of a clock sitting on your belly button and you see the peripheral of a clock, and then you've got 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. It's a bit like, there's a whole lesson called pelvic clock, which we're not going to do today, but it's really useful to see yourself in more dimensions than just survival mode. So again, once moving the hips side to side, you may want to just let that rest, and it's really interesting because although we're not working directly on the shoulders or the neck or the legs, you'll notice that just a little bit of softening and mobility in the pelvic area has an effect, almost like a wave into the rest of you. So perhaps tension in the shoulders has released a little bit. You may notice that your shoulders feel a little bit different on the floor, or perhaps the backs of the ribs are becoming a little bit more less like a desert, like, oh, I've got these ribs back here, and maybe they're getting a little closer to the floor, maybe not. So give yourself a nice rest there, and perhaps that's enough for you today. You can always come back to this and go back to the beginning, move through it. You'll be a little faster and faster as you get more used to this. Not that we're in a hurry, but it'll just be, oh, I've got that already. My body remembers that. So now, but I never jump straight into this one to what they call in yoga bridge pose. We're going to actually, I'm not interested in the destination of where I'm going. I'm interested in the journey. So I'm feeling the vertebrae on my back, and I'm allowing this pelvis to tilt a little bit more. You can even slide the fingers on the bones here. So the tailbone lifts, and it's like, can I keep the glutes soft? Or am I clenching here? So I'm just sort of transferring weight from the pelvis in the direction of the shoulders by peeling the spine off one vertebra at a time. And perhaps I've only got the sacrum, I can feel, L5, L4, 3, 2, 1, or maybe you can sense all those vertebrae going into the, almost to the lower thoracic spine. And there's an area here that's very often tight for people. It's really interesting. So I'm interested in, do the vertebrae come off one at a time, or are some of them fused? No judgment, just notice. And I still haven't explored the full range. I'm interested in just the range that feels really pleasurable. There's no ambition, there's no trying to get anywhere. I'm just really interested in learning about my body. And I can even roll the hips a little side to side and sort of feel like I'm massaging the kidney adrenal area. So I can control how I roll up the spine just by different pressure on a different foot. I can go to the side of the spine, but ideally we're sort of just going through the middle of the spine here. And taking our time to come up, maybe up, down a little bit. So I'm interested in this area. So it's almost like I've got a camera inside, and I'm observing how my spine is moving, my skeleton, and how much height the lower ribs come off the floor, the side ribs. Just sort of wanting to get an imagery of my skeleton. Yes, there is pressure in the feet. I am pushing the floor a little bit. In a Pilates exercise, you would be engaging the abdominals intentionally and using the abdominals to lift the spine. And I'm not wanting you to tense. I want you to be very soft and relaxed without clenching. Yes, there will be tonicity in the hamstrings and the glutes, but we're not sort of clenching. And maybe you are, just notice if you are, and can you really move through your skeleton with as little muscular effort as possible. So as you go up and down the spine, you eventually get your weight transference towards the base of the neck, And that's why I've taken the book away from my head, so I'm not flexing the neck too much. And I don't stay here, I immediately release down. And if there's an area that's really interesting for you that it's clunking down, a really nice little, another auxiliary movement is to gently lift the heels and just allow the natural gravity to pull one vertebra at a time down. Really taking your time, just allow gravity, release as much as possible. Just keep releasing, releasing, releasing. And then of course when the sacrum lands, the heels can come back down. So this is sort of like part 2 of the lesson. You know, we did a scan, we did the pelvic tilt forward and back, side to side a little, we took another rest, and then we started exploring just going up and down the spine. Now, some people do yoga and they do this every day, but it's not about what you know. It's about going a little bit deeper and really paying attention inwardly, whilst of course you're aware of the environment around you. Really paying attention to what's going on and really allowing this to be really pleasurable. You know, there's no goal. It's just micro movements, moving, breathing, and then of course give yourself a rest. And that's really wonderful, because if you really practice that mindfully, you can have profound, subtle, but profound changes in your whole sense of being. So again, give this video a pause, or give yourself a nice pause, because once again, if you come to the reference point of how you were lying on the floor at the beginning, you may feel, wait a minute, I can feel more contact with the floor. I can feel more support from the earth. And having more support, I can sense the space around me, through the walls, beyond the walls. There's just, if you really sort of open yourself up into a unified field of attention, you just experience expansion in these lessons. So the next part of the lesson, you know, right now I'm still processing. I'm feeling things happening as I'm not doing. I'm feeling things releasing, almost like the flesh is falling off the bones, you know. It's a lovely sort of melting feeling, and this sometimes is enough for me. But if I want to go further, I'm interested in flexing the spine from the other end. So I'm going to interlace my hands, and you know, notice which way you interlace habitually. You may want to swap it over. That might feel really weird if you're not used to that. It really messes with the brain and nervous system in a healthy way. So you can interlace the hands, and you're going to place them under your head. Now it's not an abdominal exercise, so I'm not going to keep my elbows open. I'm going to bring them forward. And I want to almost sort of pull on the back of the skin and the head very gently, so I feel that my neck is released. And then lifting of the head, just bringing the elbows towards the knees a little bit. Now this is really interesting, because sometimes, I know when I first started doing Feldenkrais, my head felt like it weighed a ton. And it did weigh a ton, because that's the way my organization was frozen. Even though I was a dancer and quite flexible, there were certain body parts can feel really heavy. And it's not that they're heavy, it's just because they've lost their movability. So to help increase my movability, I'm interested in this thoracic area, this chest. And I'm going to just take my head with one hand, as long as I can breathe and there's no strain. And I'm almost sliding the skin off the bone. I'm sliding the rib cage to move downwards. Because if the ribs are frozen and the chest doesn't know how to differentiate and integrate into the movement, the head will weigh a ton. So an auxiliary movement is to really just to show the chest that it can flex in this way. And another really interesting thing is that if your pelvis didn't have that lovely mobility tilting that we did at the beginning, this head would also weigh a ton. So you'll notice perhaps that as you lift the head higher, the pelvis naturally tilts to be lower back a little flatter. If it doesn't, or you want to increase this, and you can even use an auxiliary movement by pressing into your feet and slightly lifting the tailbone, only slightly micro movement, and seeing if the head comes up easier with less effort. So we're doing the same thing, we're peeling the spine off one vertebra at a time, but coming from the head rather than the tailbone. And again, you can even change hands there. You can take lots of rest, because you know when the head is very heavy, roll the head side to side. It's not pleasurable to lift the head and bring it down. It feels like an abdominal exercise. And I'm wanting to stay as soft as possible. Yes, the muscles will turn on, but I'm not clenching. I'm not armoring. I want to release the armoring from the body. I want to release the frozen nervous system. I want to release the trauma of shock that's coming from the body. I want to educate my body that I can move effortlessly, be organized and intelligent in my body. So after playing with peeling the head up off the spine, wow, very interesting. Again, there's a shift and change in the body. And you may feel the shoulders sense that they're much wider and flatter. You may sense the right and left scapula more clearly, the vertebrae between the shoulder blades. Even maybe the skin on the face is softening, the muscles in the face is softening. So there's many things you can observe. Maybe there's changes even in the way the weight of your feet on the floor, the backs of the legs. If you close your eyes, you can sense your skeleton. Maybe you might not see it as you would in an anatomy book, but you see what you see. You sense what you sense, and that is sufficient. It doesn't have to look like the anatomy colouring in book, which is very useful, but it is what it is. This is your image of self. It's constantly changing as we explore. We don't concentrate too much. We're sort of half asleep here. So I'm really interested now to come back to the initial peeling of the spine one vertebra at a time, because normally when I've done both ends, suddenly this pelvis feels a hell of a lot more lighter, and suddenly, wow, it floats up with greater ease. And there's almost a rotation, a counter-rotating in the shoulders, which allows the pelvis to float up higher. So it's really, really interesting. If executed very mindfully and enjoyably, you can sense changes, effective changes immediately. As small as they are, they gradually improve over time. So there's now, wow, peeling my pelvis up off the floor is just lighter, easier, and it goes higher without me trying to make it go higher. It just happens. And I've been doing this on and off for many, many years. I think my training was in 1990, the second British training in Lewis. And it's just the most simple lessons, profoundly take one deeper and deeper. You never really get anywhere. You just go deeper and deeper and further. Sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes quantum leaps, and it's about awareness and reprogramming the nervous system, using ourselves with more intelligence, more efficiency and comfort. And one of the great benefits is less injury to the body, because we're more aware of how we use ourselves. So what I'm interested in now is, there's many variations to this lesson. One variation would be to allow the head to lift and the pelvis to peel, both at the same time. So this one I find quite a Chinese puzzle, because I want to leave the floor at the same time and arrive at the same time. Almost impossible. And I notice which vertebra I balance on when everything's as high as it can without effort, which vertebrae I'm balancing on. So it's somewhere in the lower thoracic spine, maybe T11, T12, not quite T12. Just going to shift down again. So I'm peeling, oops, I moved too quickly, go into a little cramp. So I'm just going to give it a little rest. So I call this the rocking chair, because to me, I sense myself as almost becoming a movable piece of furniture where perhaps I'm going to alternate. Where as the head comes down, the pelvis comes up, and as the pelvis comes down, it's almost a push-pull feeling. My head is starting to peel up, and it's sort of without force, but there's that pull, push-pull, and it peels the pelvis down, which hovers off the floor. I'm making sure my jaw is soft, my eyes are soft, and sometimes I find my back sliding away and my feet get further away from me, and that's fine as well. So you can actually massage that very tight area of the dorsal spine, where for women the bra strap is, that's usually the vertebrae that don't move very much. And as we mobilize this area, like mentioned in my last video, which I'll give a link to below, when we mobilize this area, we take the strain off the neck and the lower back, because this area becomes very frozen, and we want to have everything movable. So then that in itself is wonderful to play with. Press pause perhaps and play with that more, and remember, never go as far as you can. So if let's say you measure 1 to 10, think of an elastic band pulling, and you're getting towards 7, 8, that's enough, maybe 9 if you're feeling really, like you want to move quite a lot. Never 10 out of 10, never to the edge. And it'll take a while for you to learn where 10 out of 10 is. And you'll know it's going to your limit when you feel more resistance in the movement, more trying, more effort. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we go out of the arena of learning. We go into what we know. We go into doing. And that's what we do when we exercise at the gym or in class. Nothing wrong with that. It just takes us out of the arena of learning. And we're here to learn in awareness through movement. So the very last part of the lesson that I'm going to give you is really interesting in my opinion, because I'm going to maybe make my legs a little bit more narrow. You know, you may want to play with that. I'm going to cross one ankle over. Now in a Pilates exercise, you want core stability, and you're trying to not let your hips move side to side and roll up down the spine in the center. And that's a different intention here. We're not looking for core stability to that degree. So if I've got my right ankle crossed over my left thigh, just above the kneecap, and I roll up the spine, I'll notice, oh wait a minute, I'm not rolling on the spine, but a little bit to the right of the spine. So those muscles that get very tight can sort of get a little bit of a fascia release here. I'm not going all the way up and down yet. I'm just experimenting with the pelvic tilt like I did at the beginning of the lesson. Because I know that's the area where I can easily jump over and go into doing. So I'm interested in between where I'm mobile here and I'm mobile up here, there's that little place in between in the middle back for a lot of people that we have a little sort of desert of oblivion. And I'm interested in that desert. I want to know more about the life that's here in my back. And we're going to roll up. I'm rolling to the side of the spine here. Yes, the pelvis will tilt, and I'm not going to fight that. And I'm just going to go a little up and down and give it a break, because I'm noticing that I'm perhaps straining a little. Not hectic straining, but I notice that I'm losing my sensitivity. I want to be so sensitive that if a butterfly landed on anywhere in my body, that I could sense it. And you know, if you hold heavy weights or medium weights and a butterfly lands on you, you don't sense it. So we want to be sort of very soft and mobile and only strong where it's necessary. So this is a really interesting rolling up and down the side of the spine, because it's a uncharted territory for some people. And go really easy, especially if you've got back injuries here. Don't even go all the way up. Don't push through pain. Don't do anything that feels that you think you have to do. You know, there's no gain with pain. We were lied to. There is no gain with pain. So I'm just rolling up and down the spine here, and maybe pausing and giving it more rest. And when I give myself a rest here, I'm going, oh my God, and the left side of my whole being feels completely different from my right. My relationship to gravity has changed, and then I feel a little what you can call lopsided, but that's fine. There's no judgment. I'm not going to try to fix it. I'm just curious. Oh, why is my whole being and my whole body different on the left and right here? And what's different? And I don't have to have the answers, because remember, we're not working in a very linear way. Our linear mind is very limited. It's very almost stupid in a way. But our nervous system and our innate wisdom is profound, so you just go with it. And maybe you'll do the same side again because you're still curious. Or maybe you're going to go onto the other side here. And once again, remember, it's a very small movement. A very small movement. And now I'm sort of rolling a little bit naturally to the left side of the sacrum, left side of the waist and spine. Not quite to the edge of the ribs. And you probably can't really see this in the video unless you've got an eye for it. So don't depend on watching me. You know, you hear the instruction, and you know, after having watched the video once, bits by it, you sort of kind of know. But I don't want you to be too visual. I want you to go audio and really sort of trust your body. I've got the left ankle crossed over the right thigh, and I'm just interested in rolling bit by bit up the spine, gradually transferring the weight into more to the left shoulder. The right shoulder is very light on the floor. And this is a complete different experience on the left side to the right. Because by nature, we're all asymmetrical. So unlike Iyengar yoga, where we really work hard to try to be symmetrical, that can be very useful. But as far as changing our habits and allowing the posture to improve, we want to go away from any judgment of what's right and wrong, and really just to experience how things are, and things will improve. Because we're not end-gaming, no end-gaming. And this side, I have to take more rest, because this side's super interesting and super different from the other side. I am left dominant. When I stand, my left leg is stronger. So now I'm on my right leg. My right leg is more flexible. Doesn't mean it's better. It's actually all over the place. It doesn't quite know where it's going. Doesn't quite know how to support me. And I'm learning to improve the support. I don't want any twinging in my knee. I may have to adjust where my foot is standing. I want to find that I'm really stable here. And if the pelvis is really going off somewhere, that's also fine. So this side, I can't catch up with my first side. This side is my weaker side. And I encourage you to start with your stronger side first if you know what that is. If you don't know what it is, don't worry, you'll learn which side is more stable. And for me, I've had enough on that side. It was really interesting, that side today. So the whole idea of which parts of you are more mobile and flexible, the whole judgment that we think it's a more sophisticated, better leg or arm is actually nonsense. It's usually just more all over the place because it doesn't quite know how to be organized. And we will all have a right dominant and the other side will be more all over the place. And it might not be left arm, left leg, it might be left leg, right arm. You know, it's interesting to find out. So we've done the pelvis tilting side to side, the rolling of the spine, and then the lifting of the head and the torso, and then, you know, both lifting off at the same time, resting, of course, in between, and then the rocking back and forth, the rocking chair. And then that may have been enough for you today, and then you just sort of touch base on what you remember a little bit without having to do the whole lesson, or maybe less time. And then we did the crossing of the ankle over the thigh and rolling up and down the spine. I would never go into that immediately, never. I would always prepare the body very slowly, as if I've never done this before. So what's interesting now is just going back to a bit of a reference point. What is it like to roll my spine now? And I like to think sometimes, like I used to cycle a lot on a bicycle, and my spine is like there's little white dashes on the road, and I'm sort of going to cycle up and down on those lines. You know, when you're on a bicycle and a kid and you want to sort of stay on the beam, stay on the line, then I've become interested in going off the line. Maybe doing a U-turn at some vertebra and coming down the other side of the road and doing a U-turn at a different vertebra. So I'm like driving up and down the spine. I'm interested in doing U-turns here and there. And I'm very clear. I'm not just moving without thinking. I'm actually thinking, okay, around there I'm going to slow down, shift. And how do I shift? I use my feet. I'm steering myself through my feet. I'm steering my spine through the feet, which of course is steering the pelvis. So it becomes really interesting. This is a lovely lesson to do with your feet on the wall. That goes much, much deeper, much more a deeper flexion. But for first time, I would always do this on the floor, not necessarily with the feet on up of the wall. Maybe I'll do a recording of that another time. So it's also nice to do U-turns around the sacrum and showing myself little oblong circles here. Maybe I can change directions, noticing how this moves through the whole spine. And I'm really interested in my little desert area, the area that I don't have much contact with the floor, with the ribs and the spine. And can I really slow down and do a few go up the road, U-turn, and go down the road. Maybe go up the road one more vertebra, do U-turn. So there's plenty of arena for practice and play there. It's really, I would love to spend more time there, but I'm going to stop the video so you can play there. Remember, the idea is that when you play, it's non-ended, non-gain ending, meaning, yes, you are using the bones, you are moving with gravity, but you're not pushing, you're not trying to be good, and you will make these kind of mistakes. We all do to some degree, but you're looking to improve and become easier and easier and more effortless by really being introspective and observing and being kind of honest with yourself. That's the first step. And then, of course, you know, the body has its parasitical things that happen that you can't help. Just go into autopilot. But, you know, you're going to notice these things improve and get better and better. So it's important at the end of the lesson that you just stand, and I've got my camera in the wrong way to stand here. So you just stand and just practice, or sit first, and just practice not doing, just being standing. Maybe shifting the weight side to side, forward and back. And then see where you're going. See your eyes taking you to the door or somewhere else in the room. Let your eyes take you and move around and walk. And just notice how your spine is moving in space, your pelvis, how the pelvis kind of rocks a little forward and back when you walk. Maybe not in the rhythm that you would have thought it would. So you just hopefully have a clearer image of your spine in space, the front, side, backs of the spine. And the head just floats on top of the spine. Everything is soft. And thank you. I hope that you enjoyed that lesson. I'm instructing in a very non-traditional way. The traditional way would to really slow down and give lots of pauses, lots of silences for you to go inside. So what I'm hoping you do is that you just press pause and experience that. And anything that doesn't go in your head, that you feel like you're half asleep and it's just washing over your head, that's fine. That's part of the learning. You just take what you need and the rest of it you put on the side burner. Thank you very much.